Hi, this is Miss Colleen from the Upper St. Clair Township Library, and I'm here in my kitchen to do an encore presentation of a cooking demonstration that was held as part of our online Zoom tween and teen programs from the library. We held this program on Wednesday, February the 10th, and I demonstrated how to make a crazy cake and how to make that cake into cake pops. Thank you for joining me today. Our recipe today comes from Mark Bittman's book, How to Bake Everything. I will link the full recipe to the library's website, so visit that to print it out and follow along at home. This cake is called the Crazy Cake because it contains no milk, no eggs, and no butter. So it is perfect if you have dietary restrictions or need to make a cake fast because it mixes up in one bowl and you can be done with the baking and the creation of the cake in less than an hour. Today I will be demonstrating how to make the chocolate crazy cake, but Mark Bittman also includes a vanilla alternative, a coconut crazy cake, a Bailey's Irish cream crazy cake, and a cinnamon spice crazy cake. All of those recipes will be linked to the website as well. To get ready, we should first wash our hands. You will also want to preheat your oven to 350 degrees and prepare your pan. Today I'm using a 9-inch round cake pan, but this cake can be made in a square pan, a rectangular pan, a glass pan, whatever pan you're comfortable using. After you've done all of your preliminary prep work, it's time to bake the cake. In a bowl, we are going to mix our dry ingredients. 2 cups of flour, which I've poured out some to begin with, but I still need a half a cup. So I will measure it out, level it off with the blunt end of a knife, so we have a nice even pour, and add that last ingredient. In addition to the flour, you will also need 1/3 cup of cocoa. I'm using Hershey's Special Dark, but that's just a personal preference. You will also need 1½ cups of sugar, 2 teaspoons of baking soda, and 3/4 of a teaspoon of salt. Whisk together all of your dry ingredients until they are well incorporated in your bowl. To our dry ingredients, we will add our wet ingredients. Mark Bittman, in his book, How to Bake Everything, instructs us to, with the back of our whisk, create 3 wells in our dry mixture. Into each well, we will pour our wet ingredients. Now, whenever I do this, everything spills out, but don't worry because we mix it all together at the end anyway. So, into one of the wells, we will put a half a cup of vegetable oil. Into another well, we will put 1½ teaspoons of vanilla. And into the third well, we will pour in 2 teaspoons of baking soda. Oh, that was vinegar, not baking soda. Oh well. White vinegar into there. It will mix with the baking soda that it was in the dry ingredients to create a leavening agent. Typically in a cake, the eggs act as leavening agents, but in this one, we create a little kitchen science where we've mixed vinegar and baking soda, and when we mix it all together, it'll bubble up and create a nice batter for us. But before we start mixing these ingredients, we are going to pour 1½ cups of cold water over the whole thing and then whisk it together. You'll want to be sure to whisk until you have a nice smooth batter. No lumps, a little bit of bubbling because of the vinegar and baking soda mixing together, but a nice smooth batter, which you will then pour into your prepared pan. So we'll pour our batter into the prepared pan and we'll pop our pan into the oven to bake for about 40 minutes or until a toothpick inserted in the center comes out clean. Once you've baked your cake, you can eat it, obviously, or you can follow along and learn how to make that cake into cake pops. The first thing that you'll do is take the cake out of the pan and put it into a bowl. I'm starting with half of my cake that I baked, not the whole cake, because as you'll see, when we add the ingredients into the cake to make the cake pops, you might need some extra on hand to get the consistency proper for creating cake pops. So take your cake, cut it in half or in quarters like I did, and I put 2 quarters into my bowl, and I'm going to begin by mashing it up. You'll want to mash it until it is relatively fully broken down. That way you're not working with large clumps. So you'll just mash it and then move on to step 2 to make your cake into cake pops. Once your cake has reached the consistency of soil, you're going to move on to step 2 for cake pops. You'll need some frosting. I'm using store-bought because I do not like to make frosting. I don't like whipping the butter. I can never get it smooth enough. So I'm just gonna take a shortcut and use store-bought. You will start to put the frosting into your cake mixture and incorporate it until it gets to a consistency where you can easily create a nice ball that will become the cake pop. That's not going to be too sticky or too soft or too hard. So that's why it's good to have extra cake on hand so you can add more dry ingredients if you make the dough too soft, or have more frosting on hand in case your dough for the cake pop ball is too dry. After you've incorporated your frosting into your cake to create a paste or a dough, I did end up using the entire round cake and the entire container of frosting. You will then move to make your balls, so that will be the top of your cake pop. I'm going to use a scooper and scoop out a hunk, and it makes a pretty nice ball, but I will smooth it out like I'm making a dough ball or a meatball until it's smooth, and I will set it aside and keep going. To complete the process of making cake pops, you will need some melted chocolate. I used Wilton chocolate melts that I melted on the stovetop. You could also use morsels, chocolate morsels, white chocolate, whatever your taste buds desire. And you will also need sticks. You will take a stick, dip it into the chocolate that you've melted, and then press the stick into the ball for your cake pop. You'll continue that until you have made all of your cake topper balls into a cake pop. Once you've made all of your cake balls into cake pops, you'll want to put your whole tray into the freezer for about 15 minutes to harden up before finishing with decorating. Now we will finish up by decorating our cake pops. Dip your pop into chocolate, give it a swirl to get the excess chocolate off, dip it into what you'd like to decorate it with, and voila, you've got a cake pop. You can rest it on parchment to dry or just eat it. Well, thank you for joining me today. Be sure to check out the other playlists on the library's YouTube channel. You'll find Share a Skill videos created by teen volunteers on a variety of subjects and a whole segment on cooking tutorials. I hope you've had fun baking with me. See you soon.